Welcome to the ELI5Bot channel, where we read 10 random questions and their most voted answers related to mathematics, economics, culture, biology, technology and many more. Disclaimer.
All the material used on this channel is owned and/or copyrighted by either an individual or company or available on the public domain. This channel may contain offensive, aggressive and rude language or graphic content. ELI5Bot holds no responsibility for those who may be affected by it.
Go!
P.S. Don't panic. Up next at number 1, in the category engineering, the user Viryoisamagai is looking to know. How do real-time translation devices work? The reply comes from Telethesage. Voice-to-text is pretty common these days, pretty much all smartphones do it now. There are also a number of text-based translation services, such as Google Translate. Combine the two and you have yourself a real-time translator. You have a program that takes speech and turns it into text. The program then translates that text. Then the program reads the translated text out loud. The translator might not work well if it has trouble putting someone's speech into text. It might also not work well if the input is grammatically incorrect, since that will make it harder for the machine to translate. And at number 2, in the category physics, the user BINDAS42 asked, where gravity is non-existent, does centrifugal force be comparable and/or equal to gravity in a spaceship like one showed in The Martian? The reply comes from Red at Night. Yes, the spaceship in The Martian is a plausible design. Incidentally, that's not the only sci-fi movie to use the same rotating drum style of artificial gravity. 2001. A Space Odyssey uses the same principle. NASA has a design for a long-range space exploration vehicle called the Nautilus X, which would use a 12-meter diameter drum to produce up to 40% of Earth's gravity. Up next at number 3, in the category physics, the user FleshJester asks, ELI5. How does hydroplaning happen? Is there any safe speed? Which the user SkipWhistle replied. When there is water on the road, your tire has to shove it out of the way if it's to stay in contact with the road. The tire has grooves in it to make this easier, but there's a limit to how fast they can move water. Exceed this and the water builds up like a wedge under the tire, lifting it off the road. You are now no longer driving, but sliding on a thin layer of water. Brake and the wheels will stop, but the road doesn't care for a while, and you'll just carry on. Likewise, you'll not be able to steer. As explained, there is a speed at which the tire cannot shift the water fast enough. Below this speed you still have contact, though as you approach liftoff you'll have progressively less contact as the wedge develops. You can sometimes tell because the road noise drops away suddenly. The safe speed is well below this. And at number 4, in the category repost, the user Skynet Genesis asked, how come we cannot domesticate cougars, tigers and other wild animals if we can domesticate cats and dogs? Nap Afternoon answered the following. Domestication differs from taming. Taming is just a wild or feral animal that becomes used to the presence of humans, e.g. zoo animals. We basically just train the animal to be calm. We are changing the behavior of the individual through training, nothing more. When we domesticate, we are genetically changing a species' DNA by artificially selecting for specific desired traits, like say a spotted fur coat or docility. Domestication genetically changes a population, and over time the individuals genetically change. You domesticate a species, you tame the individual. A feral animal is typically an escaped domesticated animal that is returned to the wild. Most animals can be tamed, but only a few species can be domesticated. Here are a couple of traits that make a species more likely to be a successful candidate for domestication. Flexible diet, species that are willing to consume a wide variety of food sources and can live off less cumulative food from the food pyramid, such as corn or wheat, particularly food that is not utilized by humans, such as grass and forage, are less expensive to keep in captivity. Carnivores by definition feed primarily or only on flesh, which requires the domesticators to raise additional animals just to feed them, though they may exploit sources of meat not utilized by humans, such as scraps and vermin. Reasonably fast growth rate, fast maturity rate compared to the human lifespan allows breeding intervention and makes the animal useful within an acceptable duration of caretaking. Some large animals require many years before they reach a useful size. Ability to be bred in captivity. Species that are reluctant to breed when kept in captivity do not produce useful offspring and instead are limited to capture in their wild state. Species such as the panda, antelope and giant forest hog are territorial when breeding and cannot be maintained in crowded enclosures in captivity. Still others like the indri have never been successfully kept or bred in captivity. Pleasant disposition. Large creatures that are aggressive toward humans are dangerous to keep in captivity. The African buffalo has an unpredictable nature and is highly dangerous to humans. Similarly, although the American bison is raised in enclosed ranges in the western United States, it is much too dangerous to be regarded as truly domesticated. Although similar to the domesticated pig in many ways, Africa's warthog and bush pig are also dangerous in captivity. Temperament, which makes it unlikely to panic. A creature with a nervous disposition is difficult to keep in captivity as it may attempt to flee whenever startled. The gazelle is very flighty, and it has a powerful leap that allows it to escape an enclosed pen. Some animals, such as the domestic sheep, still have a strong tendency to panic when their flight zone is encroached upon. However, most sheep also show a flocking instinct, whereby they stay close together when pressed. Livestock with such an instinct may be herded by people and dogs. Modifiable social hierarchy. Social creatures whose herds occupy overlapping ranges and recognize a hierarchy of dominance can be raised to recognize a human as the pack leader. How come we cannot domesticate cougars, tigers? Large big cats do not lend themselves to being domesticated. They have a very specific and expensive diet. They don't have a reasonably fast growth rate. It can be difficult to breed them in captivity. They do not have a pleasant disposition. They tend to be solitary animals who dislike living in groups. Finally, they require complex habitats and cannot be reasonably or safely kept in a person's home. And at number 5, in the category physics, the user Brandon FU asks, if reading glasses focus light rays to infinity, why do the images we see when using glasses appear within arm's reach? Saunders answered the following. Alas, that's not what's happening. While the lens might do that, the eye's image-forming plane is not at the focal point of the lens. That's why you can see near things with the lenses, but not distant mountains. Is a better example of what's going on. And at number 6, in the category biology, the user Titanicman asks, what is actually happening inside a muscle when it gets stronger? El Muchacho Loco answered the following. Just like most biological beings, the more you're exposed to an external force, the more resistance you build. Obviously not true of stuff that can kill you dead, but you get my point. The more resistance you build, the bigger, stronger you become. The muscle itself experiences microscopic tears each time it's exposed to some sort of resistance. Those tears heal by building new tissue. That's where big muscles come from, and how people who regularly hit the gym look like balls of muscle. And at number 7, in the category biology, the user Yawarenoafline asked, why do we sometimes think something is a good idea theory and when we say it out loud, we hear how stupid it actually is? The reply comes from Sterling Phonics. When you just come up with an idea, you basically only have an outline. It's not the physical act of speaking it out loud that makes you see the flaws, it's giving it deeper thought. Speaking out loud does cause you to think things over, so you notice things you didn't the first time. The same thing would happen if you thought it over again or wrote it down, etc. Up next at number 8, in the category Other, the user TIMBUKTU007 asked, living in California. How worried should we be of an earthquake? Which the user Thagoti replied. Have an emergency kit ready, after that go about your daily living. BC we get them regularly. Some you feel, some you don't. It's not that big a deal unless you have a lot of things made of fragile or delicate glass. At number 9, in the category Culture, the user THROWAY58,943,750,438 asked, why were the war on drugs started, and what part did Pablo Escobar have in it? Which the user Right No replied. The war on drugs was very much an American invention under Nixon. Very much like the war on terror, it's just stirring a moral panic so people will rally behind the government. If you can pinpoint an issue that even your opposition can't fault you for tackling, you strengthen your base. It's a very shrewd political move. There are many reasons why it gained traction and has stuck around as long as it has, but in terms of who started it, you'd have to point to Nixon before you could point to Pablo Escobar. And at number 10, in the category culture, the user MRE4U asked, ELI5. How a lifetime ban to a sporting arena works, which the user CamelCasey replied. Apparently, they're really not enforced all that much. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.